the outer expression of people's cultures in the way they dress or the names they call themselves in modern society appear to be culturally biased. In many places, an Islamic name is just an Arab name or a Pakistani name, or the name that is given by the Muslim majority or the culture of the Muslim majority of a place. But if we go back to the early practice of Islam at the time of the Prophet and the Sahaba, we find that when it came to names and dresses, because these were considered part of mu'amalat, social transactions, the general rule, the general premise was that of acceptability, of permissibility, unless it contradicted the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And so when we look at the dressing that Islam prescribes, Islam does not prescribe a particular cultural dress. It just requires that certain parts of the body should be covered in a modest way. It shouldn't be tight to show the figure of the aura or that part that should be covered. It should not be transparent. It should be culturally modest after respecting what should be covered from the part of the Quran and the Sunnah. But once it has met that requirement, whether it is Pakistani fashion or Malaysian fashion or any other fashion, the Prophet did not prescribe a particular color of a dress. It just should meet the Sharia minimum standard requirements, whether it is men's dressing or women's dressing. So Islam respects that cultural practice of a people. And so we find the Prophet wearing Persian dressing or Yemeni dressing in ways, of course, that didn't contradict the stipulations of the Quran or of his Sunnah. What we find also when it came to names, that when people embraced Islam at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the Sunnah of the Prophet was that they retained their cultural names. It was only where a cultural name had a meaning or an implication that went contrary to the teachings of Sharia. So when a particular Sahabi wanted to name his child Harb, which meant war, the Prophet ﷺ discouraged him from that, and he said he should call him Hassan, or in another instance, that other son should be called Hussein. When people had names like Abdul Shams, which meant servant of the sun or worshipper of the sun, the Prophet, peace be upon him, would encourage such companions to change their names to other Arab names that had better meanings. But we find the names remained within the culture. But other names, as Islam spread, were taken by Muslims in different parts of the world. So what we find from a lot of the names we have today, and the names in the Quran, names like Ibrahim, names like Maryam, Musa, these were names of people who came from other non-Arab cultures, and we still respect those names because they were good names, even though these names were not given to these prophets necessarily by Muslims. Musa was a name given to him by the people of Pharaoh or Pharaoh's family. Ibrahim's name was most likely given to him by his family, who were non-Muslims. The Prophet Muhammad was given the name Muhammad by his family, who were Jahiliyyah, non-Muslims. So when we look at names like Abdullah, Abdullah is a good name, but it was a Jahiliyyah name. It was the name of the father of the Prophet who was not a Muslim. So when we look at names as a whole, we respect names irrespective of their culture. What we are concerned about is we want good names, or at least names that do not carry a bad meaning. So we find in the Quran a person who is mentioned in the hadith as being Khidr, but Khidr just means green. And so Islam would not have a problem with somebody whose name is Aswad, which just means black, or Khidr, which means green, or grey, or any other color. Some people have been given names of animals, like Ghazali, which means a gazelle, or Asad, which means a lion, or Namir, which means a tiger. Or we hear companions by the nicknames, which was a loving nickname even the Prophet gave Abu Huraira, the owner of a kitten, because he used to hold a kitten. So names like Abu Turab, which meant the one who is with dust, figuratively describing Ali, one of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So when non-Muslims become Muslims, they do not need to change their names. Actually, in line with the Sunnah, it is better that they stick with their own urf, their own customary names, because it otherwise creates a misconception that Islam wants you to start abandoning those good parts of your culture that Islam actually came to ratify. Those cultural practices in Jahiliyyah times that the Prophet ﷺ accepted and practiced were eventually called Sunnah. They were considered as part of the Sunnah. However, even if somebody's surname or family name is un-Islamic, they should still be respected, and people should maintain their family names because these show their lineage. And so people whose names ended with Abdul Shams or Abdul Muttalib, the Prophet ﷺ respected that these should be respected because the Qur'an says, call people by the names of their fathers. And so we respect family lineage, and even if the name was not an Islamically acceptable name, because it is not your name, it is the name of your father or grandfather or family, then those names should be respected. So in brief, when it comes to changing name, changing dress, so long as it doesn't contradict a clear teaching of the Qur'an and Sunnah, cultural practices, cultural expressions in dressing, in names should be respected. It also helps reduce misconception that Islam has come to change everything about a culture. Islam only changes what is harmful and respects what doesn't contradict it or brings any harm.